Well.
You got yourself a lineup there.
It's quite the array I got over here.
Are you gonna take a sip from like each one
I realized
randomly,
that,
or are you
dude,
going in like an order?
I'm just a sampler, man.
Mm.
Like when Nathan gets a thing of ice cream, he's gonna devour that thing.
Yeah.
No, not a chance. There's gonna be anything left. Me, for the most part, with sweets or like drinks and stuff, I'm a sampler. Like I just need a taste. That's why I love charcuterie boards. I'm a big charcuterie board guy. I freaking love the chocolate assortments that you get on Valentine's Day. Holy crap.
Really?
I love them, dude. Because it's like it's literally the perfect sampler. Charcuterie board is like a snack version of like the perfect sampler.
That's interesting.
I don't know what it does. Like, I don't know why I am that way. But for me, I just need
like
a little
bit
taste.
of everything.
Yeah, like a little bit of everything, and I'm good. It
That's
just like
funny.
satisfies me. Like you give me a cheese board with some crackers, I'll rock that all day long.
I think I'm a lot like Nathan in that sense. Like if you just give me something that I
like a pizza last night,
dude, like the pizza last night, or dude, this drink you made is pretty good, bro. It's pretty good.
The first time I made that, I didn't realize, but I accidentally made it like double strong to what it's supposed to be. And then you liked it. And so then, like, the way that it's technically supposed to be made, you were like, yeah, I don't like this.
Yeah.
So now you just get like a freaking double shot every time. It's just hilarious.
Yeah, even like a lot of times if I have a drink or something, I've noticed this about myself where I have to like really like pace myself.
Same.
Where
Yeah, we're bad about popcorn,
dude, yeah.
We're bad about
popcorn. Popcorn is the worst. I feel like an animal when I'm eating popcorn sometimes.
I'm like, all right, I'll just do one at a time, and then that turns into one handful
Yeah.
at a time.
And then like for me, it turns into like how much popcorn can I like, fit into my mouth at one time, dude? It's like falling all over my chest. Like, what am I doing?
I don't know, man. That's freaking living to me. It's a treat.
It is. Dude, can you believe the accident was a week ago?
I was just about to say that. No, I can't. I can't.
It feels longer than that for some reason.
I mean, technically it's a day longer because it was last Friday.
Oh, yeah, true.
But
that's true.
It feels like 2 weeks.
Yeah. I was talking to my brother like a few days ago, and I was just saying how the whole thing almost it doesn't feel real. Almost, because of the way that it happened. Like, it all happened so fast, dude.
Yeah.
Like, the accident happened, all of a sudden I'm like on the grass, on the curb.
Just standing.
Yeah, but then like police were there, the freaking
EMS.
ambulance was there, like right there instantly.
Yeah.
And my car was like towed and gone in a matter of like less than an hour. Yeah. And it was like that fast. No and then closure. I'm in your car, we go home, we come film a podcast. And it was like nothing changed. Like it was so weird.
It's a wild sequence to happen.
Yeah.
Like even because you didn't go to work that day. Everything about that day was just weird.
Yeah. It felt like it was just like a glitch. It was a glitch in the matrix.
Your car glitched out of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just strange.
Have you had any like anxiousness?
Not really, no.
Since then?
Yeah. I've been good.
Good to go.
Good. Yeah.
Nice.
That's the thing with something like that. You have two options. You can either really like remain the same, which is like just as bad as getting worse, or you can learn from it and get better. So
Mm.
I like to think that I'm a better driver now
Mm.
than I was before,
Good.
right?
What a good
So
perspective.
yeah. Dude, what the heck are we talking about today, dude?
I don't know, man. I was hoping you had it figured out.
Dude, I saw that giant book you were carrying around, and you had it in your hand when you went to see Cliff.
Yes. So
It's like
Bonhoeffer.
Bonhoeffer. Yeah.
Have you heard about him before?
No. I've like heard the name, but
So just the subtitle of his biography says pastor, theologian, spy, martyr. Which is a wild resume
that
just
is
off
a
rip.
crazy resume, dude. Imagine putting that on your LinkedIn.
So obviously like I just started it, but honestly I had got it like that the day that I went and saw Cliff, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna bring this with me. And it turned out to be like such a smart move.
Really?
Because yeah, several of the people there recognized the book, and like it was a conversation starter, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
And my mom read the same book like, I don't know, probably like 10 years ago, 15 years ago maybe. And she's always recommended it. But
It's like a biography?
Mhm.
Okay.
So basically the summary of it is he grew up in like a really well-to-do family. His dad was a well-renowned some type of scientist. I mean, like they were pretty well off, like as in everyone went to like a good school. He had 8 siblings. They all like they had a cabin that they would go to during the summer. They had a governess, which I don't even know what that means. They hired a governess. They had 2 maids, like full time, and I think one other thing, like a cook or something. So they were super well off, basically.
Yeah.
And so he was raised in a household that was very much. His dad actually wasn't very, like they didn't go to church, but the mom was very Christian, and so she instilled in her kids Christian values. And the dad was all about it, but he like thought that he thought theology was like kind of a fool's endeavor, pretty much.
Okay.
But Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he knew from about like 13 years old that he wanted to be a theologian. So then World War I starts, and he goes through World War I, and two of his brothers get killed. So he's the youngest of all the boys. So two of his brothers get killed, and that sends his mom like into a spiral of grief for a while. But he's also like a super talented musician. So his parents like wanted him to pursue music, but he decided not to. Knew he wanted to study theology. And eventually they somehow make their way to America. I think it's right as Hitler starts to gain power right before World War II.
Dang.
They escape and they go to like Sweden, I think, or Switzerland. And then they somehow make it to America. And so eventually what happens is Dietrich is in America, going to American churches, I think maybe studying theology. Like I haven't made that far yet. But basically he gets so convicted about not being in his home country and not like fighting for his country and like how much the German church is supporting Hitler, that he decides to go back into Germany and become a spy for the German resistance of Hitler. Eventually gets captured. So he's like in
the German resistance, like against Hitler.
Yeah, or like Jewish and German resistance, German Jews that are resisting Hitler, like the internal, the people that are in the country still that are trying to fight back against the Nazis, basically. Because that's what happened. And in the book, it talks about how...
Is that like oh, sorry, go ahead.
The book talks about how that there were many, many Germans who despised the Nazis. But something that Winston Churchill did was pushed in his rhetoric to make the German and the Nazi indistinguishable. He wanted the British people to see Germans as Nazis. But Nazis were a party, right? So theoretically you could be a German and not be a Nazi.
Yeah.
But because they needed to basically demonize the country, they pushed that rhetoric on them. And so there were a good amount of German people who did not like Hitler, pushed back against the war, all this stuff, right? And so eventually he goes back there. He gets connected, I guess, with a bunch of people in that kind of group and was involved in a plot to assassinate Hitler. And then he gets arrested and sent to a concentration camp and gets killed.
Gosh.
Right at the end of the war.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
So how did his story get documented or whatever?
I think he kept a pretty extensive diary. And then, right now it's just based on a lot of reports from his family. Because I'm in the part where he grows up. And so a lot of it's based on letters. He wrote a lot of letters to his family. And he wrote a lot in his diary about his family. So it's drawn a lot from those things, as well as people that knew him. But apparently, so while he was he's often I'm reading the part where he's off in college right now studying, and he ends up going back and living at his parents' house for 20 years, longer than he basically goes to college and then comes back and lives at his parents' house until
he goes to college where? In America?
No, in Germany.
Oh, in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes back to America.
No, his parents... I'm still at the part where his parents are in Germany still. They haven't fled to America.
Okay.
But he stays at his parents' house a lot longer than normal.
Okay.
And their family was super, super tight knit, and they're all brilliant. One of his brothers was a physicist that was a part of the team that split the atom.
What the heck?
Yeah, insane, dude. Insane. Very well-to-do family, very intelligent. And his parents were so wise in the way that they conducted their family and the way that they conducted... his dad did not allow you to say, any cliches in their house. Everything that you said had to be very purposeful and very reasonable. And he they revered him so much that him just raising an eyebrow at them would cause them to be oh, I said the wrong thing. Humor was allowed, but not unreasonableness and or generalization. It always was you had to say something that was very much backed up by evidence. So that's why they grilled him when he finally came out and told them he wanted to study theology, because they saw it as a fool's endeavor.
Wow.
Right? Because you can't prove a lot of what theology surmises, right? And so...
Dang, that's super interesting.
Right?
Does it talk about what drew him to theology?
There was this guy who was a part of the effort to help Germans after World War I, because they had to pay reparations and do all this stuff for the Treaty of Versailles. And he was a huge part of the effort to help Germans get rehabilitated in life in general. And so he was doing revivals basically there. And so Dietrich went over and experienced a revival, a spirit-filled revival for the first time. And that left a huge impression on him as well. But that was already after. I don't really know why, what just caused him to decide to study it other than just his interest. But dude, I didn't realize how bad inflation got for Germans after World War II. But
Really?
the German mark, which was like their dollar, it at first was like, when it first started, it was like 75 marks to the US dollar. That's like when
Okay.
the inflation first started. And then it had a huge compound curve of inflation. Basically, like the floor fell out from underneath it. It went from like 75 to 600 to 1,000 to 500,000 to a million. A million marks to the US dollar. Then it got up into the billions, straight up. Like Dietrich has in a letter sent to his family saying, I don't have any money left. I just paid 6 billion marks for a loaf of bread for like my bread this week.
What?
Legit. That's why Germany was struggling so bad after World War I. That's how Hitler rose to power so dramatically. And
Dude,
it just talks about the part.
crazy.
So during this part, Hitler like makes this speech and tries to basically like take power, and he gets thrown in jail. And in jail, he writes Mein Kampf, which is his book that like starts to gain traction, right? And it's all about, well, I don't know about that, but a big thing that he stands on is that Germany's has been done wrong by the Treaty of Versailles, and it's clearly backed up by what the German people are experiencing, which is like massive inflation. I'm sure I think there's like a term for that kind of. I think it's like reverse. I don't know. There's some kind of term for that where like the dollar, like your money gets so devalued that it just becomes obsolete, basically.
Yeah.
And so
okay.
you kind of start to like barter instead. And so, this was crazy. So the dad, his name's Carl, Dietrich's dad, had a life insurance policy that he paid like every month for his whole life. And right about that time, it came to term. So he got paid 100,000 marks for it. Like that, like right after the marks went crazy.
Really?
So he basically like, he could barely afford anything with that. But if you think about it,
I didn't even know they had something like life insurance back then.
Right?
But
well, if you think about it, like
that's insane.
When it was 75 marks per dollar, per US dollar, you got 100,000 marks. That's freaking a lot of money.
Yeah, yeah.
But when it's 6 billion marks per US dollar, that's like a drop in the bucket.
It's nothing. Yeah, it's literally nothing.
And that's how inflation cripples an economy.
Dude, that's so wild. Holy crap. So that was in between like World War I and World War II.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did it say what caused the inflation? Like, how involved was Germany in World War I?
Very much involved. They were, I would say, almost as involved as in World War II. I know the Treaty of Versailles basically crippled their economy, essentially. So like it basically, they were demanded to pay debt and reparations to France, and they ended up like defaulting on that because the mark got so hyperinflated.
Gosh, dude, that is an era of time that I really want and need to study more.
Same. Yeah.
Because there's so many things, like just the way it all evolved.
Mm-hmm. It should be studied.
It should be studied, dude.
By everyone.
Yeah.
Well, and I agree, and I also enjoy studying that type of history the most through biographies like this. Because it gives me like a tangible personal story to relate to, like a person living throughout that time. And it's so much more engaging for me than just like a dry, stage by stage history book personally. So
yeah, I can see that. That makes sense.
That helps me a lot is when I read biographies like this.
Yeah. I would really be interested to see like what you said with Bonhoeffer, right? That's
Yeah.
his name, and how he was so concerned about, you said like the churches in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
I would just be really curious to have an understanding of what the church was like during
Yeah,
that time.
I know. I haven't got to that part yet, but it's fascinating because Germany at the time, I believe, was a pretty significant theological like capital.
I'm sure, dude.
A
I'm
lot of
sure.
theological work came out of Germany during that
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And so for the church to basically be in support of Hitler is crazy.
That is crazy.
It's wild, man. And so I'm assuming is what makes Dietrich Bonhoeffer so astounding, is that his ability to like critically think and push back on his own people like that.
Wow.
And they're coming out with, I'm reading it because Sam told me that, reminded me that they're coming out with a movie
Oh, really?
later in November. Yeah.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, we need more. We need more movies like that, dude.
yeah.
We need to right the wrongs of movies like Napoleon and
Dude.
stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I feel like yeah, I don't really read biographies that often. I probably should. I like for me, I've talked to you about this, but like I like to, when I read history, I like to just understand
The timeline.
the timeline and like just and I can just like see it all. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Yeah. That like history from like the 19 really like the 1900s. I feel like maybe even like more Civil War, but like World War One, World War Two, the Cold War,
Mm-hmm.
all those things. Like I just don't, for whatever reason, like I don't know as well as like the American Revolution or
Really?
even like ancient history.
Hmm.
But I'm sure all those things, like each of those wars, like from the 1900s, like if you had a really good understanding of it, you'd probably have a really good understanding of why like things
Or
happen the way they do today.
yes.
So
That's well said.
okay, here's a question for you, dude. I want to like know your opinion on this, like your personal opinion,
Okay.
because we have the election coming up in what, like 3 days, 4 days?
Gosh, is it really?
I think so.
November 5th. Yeah,
Yeah.
3 days. Holy crap.
So like, what is your actual opinion on like Christian nationalism? Like, what do you think about that?
It's really tricky. I feel like
It is.
because it's like the same thing that we get accused of when we talk about the local church, or we get accused of being derogatory towards the local church. If you talk about Christian nationalism, it's really easy for people to blame you for being unpatriotic.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is a clear duty to your country that you should have as an American. But I don't believe that duty should supersede your duty as a Christian.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's where Christian nationalism goes wrong, right? So, like, I guess for anybody listening that doesn't know what Christian nationalism is, it's essentially putting the goals of your country over, like, as intermixing those with
like the goals of your faith.
the
right?
goals of your
Pretty
faith.
much.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. So, like, imagine like if the United States wanted to take over a certain territory, then you would say, like, Manifest Destiny is a really good example,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
they would mix in, well, it's our destiny to go all the way to the West Coast and claim that territory for America because this is God's country. And it's like, well, not necessarily at all. Like that doesn't, those are two mutually exclusive things. Like, can God bless your country? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can he give your country land? For sure. But to say that it's your right is not just objectively biblically accurate.
Yeah.
And so that's what gets me is like when people talk about it in the same category, it's making a category mistake. Because here's what I've been thinking about this so much, Zach, because I'm like, what am I going to say the next time like a Christian talks to me about this stuff, like Christian nationalism?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I dismantle this in a way that doesn't make them super defensive?
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the best examples of this is it's in one of the New Testament epistles. And he basically says like, one second, what verse says, fear God, honor the emperor? Okay. So it's 1 Peter 2:17. It says, honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor.
1 Peter?
Yeah. So this is what's interesting to me. You ready for this, dude?
I'm ready, dude.
So during the time where this is written, 1 Peter, it says, honor everyone, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the emperor. Okay, clear emphasis on honor the emperor.
Yeah.
Guess who the Roman emperor was during this time?
I'm going to guess it's Nero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emperor Nero. He ruled from AD 54 to AD 68 and was known for his brutal persecution of Christians, particularly later in his reign.
Yeah.
Peter's exhortation to honor the emperor would have been especially challenging for Christians under Nero's rule, given his notorious treatment of them.
Yeah. Nero was like...
When we say
like the worst, one of the worst of the worst.
When we say like when it says brutal persecution, we're talking like crucifying Christians and burning them at the same, like burning their corpses as torches to light the way for his party guests.
Yeah.
Like that kind of brutality.
Yeah.
And for Peter to say honor the emperor when it's very clear what the emperor was doing is such a wild like slap in the face to Christian nationalism, because Christian nationalism basically says that you should do as a Christian everything in your power to gain governmental authority as a Christian. Like the big point is like to overthrow the current evil government, right? Like drain the swamp.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so it's like, is it a bad thing to have a Christian in power? No.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a bad thing.
Right.
Right? Because we know that these values are good. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, all of those things. America's built on Judeo-Christian values. We know this, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing. That's why people don't leave America. That's why people want to come to America.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
However, to say that it is our duty as a Christian to make sure at all costs that we have a Christian government is unbiblical. Because the only places where Jesus commands or even talks about worldly government is give unto Caesar what's Caesar's and give unto God what is God's. And then it's here where Peter says, honor the emperor. And so it's just like, and again, like people may hear me say that and think that I'm like, well, oh, does that mean you don't care if like we get invaded? Or does that mean you don't care if like we have a dictator president or whatever? It's like, no, of course not. Like I would care and I would fight back against that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But does that mean that I place that duty to my country above my duty to honor the leadership no matter what they're doing to me? which is I mean, like, I don't know many Christians who would think like that, to be like, you know what, I'm gonna truly honor the emperor or the president, no matter if they're killing my people. That is like, we don't even understand that.
I mean, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's my view. I think that this idea that this like extreme right position, extreme conservative position has, that we need to completely like gut our government and put like the quote unquote good people in there, and that's going to somehow fix our problems, is like straight up liberation theology in the truest form.
It's very similar to, I think it's the Maccabees, right? That led it was like a Jewish revolt against,
I think so,
the Greeks.
I think
It was the
so.
Greeks. I think it was the Greeks, because it would have been after like Alexander the Great, I think, but before the Romans ish.
The Maccabean revolt was a Jewish rebellion that took place between 167 and 160 BC. It was led by a family known as the Maccabees against the Seleucid Empire, which was ruling over Judea. The revolt began as a response to the oppressive policies of Antiochus Epiphanes, a Seleucid king who sought to impose Greek culture and religion on the Jewish people. This included banning key aspects of Jewish religious practices, desecrating the temple in Jerusalem by dedicating it to Zeus,
and
erecting idols within it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, dude. And from a Jew's perspective at that time, like for them to sacrifice, to perform a sacrifice on like the Jewish altar to a Greek god, dude. I mean, the altar is defiled. So that would have been huge for them.
So check this out. Mattathias, the priest. The revolt began in the town of Modin, where Mattathias, a Jewish priest, refused to perform a pagan sacrifice, as ordered by Antiochus's officials. When another Jew stepped forward to make the sacrifice, Mattathias killed him and the official. This sparked the revolt. He and his 5 sons then fled to the hills, where they gathered supporters to fight back. Judah Maccabee, after Mattathias' death, his son Judah took over leadership, known as Judah the Hammer. He led the guerrilla warfare campaign against the Seleucids, achieving several significant victories despite being outnumbered and outmatched. In 164 BCE, Judah and his forces recaptured Jerusalem and rededicated the temple, an event commemorated by the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. Didn't know that. They cleansed the temple and resumed Jewish worship, celebrating the miracle of the temple menorah burning for 8 days with only a single day's worth of oil. Independence and Hasmonean dynasty. After Judah's death, his brothers continued to struggle until Judea gained a degree of autonomy from the Seleucid Empire. This led to the establishment of the Hasmonean dynasty, which ruled an independent or semi-autonomous Jewish kingdom for about a century. Wow, so it was a pretty successful rebellion then.
Yeah, pretty crazy one, dude.
Oh shoot, okay. It's significant in Jewish history as a symbol of resistance against oppression and the struggle to preserve Jewish identity and religious freedom. The story is recorded in the books of 1st Maccabees and 2nd Maccabees, which are included in the Apocrypha. Wow, I did not know that.
Dude, which is why, like, that just adds a whole nother layer to the Gospels, and why the people were so, especially the Pharisees, like they were so confused by Jesus, because that rebellion was seen as like a major success for the Jews in gaining back, because like we have to understand is that the Jews, like the Israelites, had all this time of them, like you had King David, King Solomon, right? Saul before them, and like this time of where like they were sovereign. Like they had their own nation. They had their
Mm.
own like actual kingdom.
Yeah.
And then it was all stripped away from them, and then they were exiled to the Assyrians and the Babylonians for hundreds of years. So then finally the Persians come along,
Mm.
and King Cyrus allows the Jews to go back to their homeland, but like they're
Yeah.
still under rule.
Yes.
So this revolt is like the first time that they gain some sort of autonomy, like over themselves again. So like that was seen as a huge.
And 164
thing.
BCE was only like 164 years ish before Jesus.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that would have been pretty fresh in their
yes,
minds.
dude. Yes.
So that's only like that's only like 2 generations removed.
Yeah, literally.
So it would have been like the grandfathers or great grandfathers of the Jewish people.
Yes. So now imagine like Jesus comes. Like it just makes further sense as to why they thought Jesus would come as like a warrior king that was gonna save them from the Romans and like reestablish the kingdom, right? So
I think Christian nationalism is so dangerous because it exhibits a lot of very cultish aspects to it, depending on like what layer you go down to, like what elevator, what floor,
sure.
like what floor you take the elevator down to.
Yeah.
It really depends. But it just gets to this point where it's like people are more concerned about building a better physical kingdom in America than they are about building the spiritual kingdom of God. And that's a huge problem.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
Well,
what are your thoughts on it?
So I it's just like it's tough because first of all, like I want to say this that I think that sometimes there are people that will also go too far the other way and be like, oh, like I don't care about any of this at all. Like I don't.
Yeah.
It's almost like they completely neglect their even like rights as an American citizen, right?
For sure.
Where it's like, oh yeah, I don't care at all because they don't want to like subscribe to that whole Christian nationalism so much that like that I don't know, like they don't.
Yeah, like if someone invaded, like I wouldn't really fight back at all. Like I would just let them take over, and you're like, huh?
Yes.
What?
But then again, like it's like where do you draw that line? Like,
that is the question.
At what point do you fight back? Because if in the New Testament the Christians were getting freaking slaughtered by Nero, and Paul is telling them to honor the emperor, and like they didn't fight back.
Yeah.
Like you don't really see, as far as like Christians.
Yeah.
You don't really ever see Christians fight back or like fight at all until the Crusades.
Yeah.
And that's not really a time that like Christians are proud of today. So it's like.
But then you also go backwards and you see in the Old Testament.
A
ton of fighting. But then you also have like the Old Covenant, New Covenant argument of, yeah, they were fighting physically, and a lot of almost every aspect of their spiritual journey was physical, of like physical sacrificing, right? Like, just go down the line.
Yes.
And there was like a physical taking of land, there was a physical kingdom of Israel, right?
Yes.
And then so when you have Jesus come, he transfers all of that and transforms most of that into now a spiritual kingdom, now a spiritual sacrifice. Like, all of that becomes almost, you can argue that almost all that becomes spiritual.
Okay, yeah. So then like the problem with that is that you could turn around and say, like, well, then if God is never changing, right? That's like a big fundamental belief of the Christian faith, and like why does that seem like such a dramatic change? Where in the Old Testament you have all these wars, all these fightings, all these like almost like, I mean, dude, if you're like the land of Canaan was like, I mean, dude, you could call that manifest destiny for the Israelites. Like God was like, I'm gonna give you this land, like you're gonna go there and you're gonna conquer it, and like you're gonna rule over it, right?
Very
like,
true. Very
so
true.
the Israelites believe, like I mean, they believed that, and they
Yeah.
did that. They went and freaking conquered this land and like
True.
took over all these people or whatever. And so like it's I feel like
Okay, this is what I would say to that.
Okay.
I would say that what was God's promise to Abraham? It was, I'm going to create a nation out of you,
Yes.
and then they're going to receive this promised land,
Mhm.
which was fulfilling the whole like Noah's sons thing that you mentioned a few episodes ago,
Yeah.
right? So kind of knocked out two birds with one stone there. Like that was God's promise to his people, which was fulfilled. And then Jesus's promise became, I'm going to give you access to a land, a heaven, a inheritance that is not physical, but one that is spiritual. And so that's what I would say to that is like the narrative didn't really change, but it got transformed because if God's ultimate goal is to bring us back to the Garden of Eden,
Yes.
right? Like then we know that the kingdom of heaven is like the end goal, right? To be in heaven with God is the end goal. And while on earth, we can live in the spiritual kingdom of God, right? So I would argue that Jesus's fulfillment of the covenant was like, you now, when you accept me, are now co-heirs to this new inheritance, which is eternal life. And so
Yes.
that's why I wrestle with the idea when churches, like local churches, talk about like taking land. Because it's like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with building a new building. I don't think there's anything wrong with that stuff, right? Like raising money to expand.
Right.
Like when they talk about like expanding your territory, but it's meant to be like a physical sense. I don't know. I just kind of like, I just don't know where that lands.
Gosh, there's so many layers to this conversation, but it's so good. Like, because here's the thing about the Old Testament is like we talk about how the Old Testament, right, was much more. It seems much more like physical, in that like they're literally taking land. They're literally, expanding their territory. And then the New Testament comes around, and it's much more. It seems much more spiritual, right? Like,
yeah.
And even what we talk about now, like even if the pastor says that like we're going to expand our territory, right? Like there's always like a spiritual undertone to that.
There is,
right? Like this is God, like expanding our influence, right?
Yeah, or even like we need more seats to have more people.
Yes.
So we can save. We can
Yes, because like
bring
in a
more
spiritual
people.
sense, you're like growing the kingdom.
Yeah.
But in a physical sense, you're literally expanding your territory, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I guess it depends on what they mean, right?
So I don't think, I would say that like, I don't think the Old Testament was that different. Because I think that the Old Testament, like, I think they were, I mean, obviously, like, they were far more spiritual than we are in a lot of different ways where...
Yeah.
So, okay, in the Unseen Realm, they talk about, this is kind of like the whole, get back to the whole land thing, right? And how land, he has like a phrase for this. It's like geographic something. But land was seen as kind of like owned by a god, right? Or like by whatever spiritual being you're worshiping. So there's a story in David. Gosh, I don't remember how it goes, but there's a story, not in David. There's no book called David, but about David, where he wants to like, I think he's running away from Saul or something, and he wants to like do a sacrifice or whatever, but like he won't do it unless it's in the land that's like the Lord's.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So I say that because when when God is telling them to go and conquer these lands, it's like, it's a physical thing, but it's also spiritual. It's like God is reclaiming. Remember how we talked about he disinherited all these lands, right? And so
Yes.
God is now reclaiming this land,
Yeah.
like in a physical sense, but also in a spiritual sense as well. And the people would have been fully like aware of that, probably more than we are today, right? Because I mean, their whole world, like in the ancient Near East, like their whole world was intertwined with, like, the physical and the spiritual were very much
True.
like more intertwined
Mhm.
than like how I feel like we separate it a lot today. But then somewhere along the lines, as the Israelites were in captivity and like with the Maccabean revolt, like they
Mhm.
lost that.
Hmm.
They lost that like sense of, I don't know, like I don't like, I'm sure they were still like spiritual,
Mhm.
but it's like you said, like they started to put like Israel's goals, Israel's, oh my gosh. What
Where
was I
were we?
saying? Christian nationalism.
You were talking about how the spiritual and the physical were very much intertwined, and when they took land, it was like actually taking like spiritual territory away from these other gods.
Yes. Yes.
But then talked about how that slowly became less and less of a factor during like the Maccabean revolt,
Yes.
and like as they became basically like lorded over by these other kings and nations.
Yeah. So that, I guess like what I'm really getting to is that I think that's why it's such a big like conundrum for Christians, because Old Testament you have kind of like a manifest destiny.
Yeah.
It
Theology.
seems, yeah, like, I don't know, example.
Mm-hmm.
And then New Testament, it seems very opposite.
I mean, I think of Paul's saying, "You don't fight against flesh and blood, but against like the rulers and the principalities and the authorities of the air."
Yeah.
Versus like how much of a different faith will we have if we still were commanded to do what the Old Testament nation did, of like, imagine if we were literally commanded to like physically take over in order to have like domain. I think we would live our lives very differently than how we do now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
But what I'm saying is like, that is like a core principle of Christian nationalism, is that it is really tricky, because it's like, if someone comes to my home and says, "I'm going to take this over and kill you and your family," I'm not just going to be like, "Yeah, well, I'm not, too bad I'm not commanded to like fight back against you." Right?
Yeah.
So like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
do that. Like I am going to definitely fight back against that, right? And I'm not going to just allow tyranny to take over. But at the same time, I don't see a lot of I just don't see a lot of evidence in scripture that just talks about the importance of like physically taking over. At least in the New
Yeah.
Testament. Except for
Yes.
Paul, like what I see very clearly is Paul like putting a crap ton amount of energy going and starting all these churches across the Middle East.
Right.
And in that sense, he was like taking
Yes.
spiritual land.
Yes.
Right? Like he was
right.
like taking thoughts captive.
Yes.
And a lot of the language of like putting on the full armor of God, all of that is turned spiritual.
Right.
And so that's like where I just can't, Like, I just can't justify going out without any recourse of like, as a Christian, I have to go take this land. I don't think that there's like, I don't think that there's a biblical precedent for that, but I do think that you have the I think as an American Christian, you have the ability to defend yourself, defend your home. I believe that, and I stand by that. Right. And so that's where it gets kind of sticky.
That's where it gets tricky though, because it's like, where do you draw the line on that, dude? If all of a sudden, like, whoever's president, if the president decides, like, in just like the most wild scenario, like, hey, we're gonna invade your homes and lock you up, or we're gonna XYZ, right? Like, at what point do you defend yourself, or do like what Christians did in Nero's time, right? Like, is there a right? Is there a right one?
Oh, here's a question.
Okay.
Here's a question. Can you defend your home and your family and still honor the power that's trying to take it over? I think that is like a principled question. Like, so this is my question. Does honoring the emperor mean allowing them to do whatever they want to you? I don't know.
So what would honoring the emperor mean? Like, what would that mean exactly?
I don't know, dude. I don't know. Man, I don't know.
That's gosh, a really interesting question.
You want to talk about popping bubbles?
Yeah, dude.
This conversation. Whew.
Yeah, dude. A lot of heat, bro.
Yeah.
We're
really
riding
toeing the
that
line,
fence, bro. Can make a lot of enemies. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I agree with you. I think in a lot of what you said, like, as an American Christian, like, as an American, Paul is a great example still, because he uses his rights as a Roman citizen to avoid being like beaten, pretty much.
Yes.
And like whatever. So
100%.
I think as an American citizen, you have these rights.
Yes.
And I think another thing too, like, as a Christian, right? America was founded on Christian principles. Right. So that definitely makes it easier to, I think that's where it also gets tricky, because it's like America was founded on Christian principles, right? It's like one nation under God. So that's why it's so easy to become like nationalistic, right? Because it's like it's this nation that is directed and leaded by God, supposedly, but at the end of the day, like, you have to accept that it is just a country. Like, it's another kingdom, it's another empire, like any other. It's not like, it's not the same. America is not the kingdom of God, right?
That part.
So
that part you have to like deconstruct from each other. You have
to be able to separate
detach.
Those. Yes.
Or you have to detach, separate them from each other. And like, am I saying that like during World War II, I would not have like gone and fought against Germany and Hitler? I probably definitely would have, right? Because I think it's like, I think it's our duty as an American to like serve your country, right? But like, does that to me, does that come as a priority above my duty to God? I don't think so. So if like in some sense, I believe in the just war theory. I do. Like I think it is possible to wage war justly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like there is objective good and evil,
Yes.
and that those who are on the side of objective good have some kind of responsibility to protect against evil.
Yeah.
I am super convicted about that. Very much so.
Okay,
Yeah,
so let's go back. Okay, so in the case of the Maccabees,
yeah.
I feel like it could be fair to say that what they did, I would say that maybe they had a right to do it.
Yeah.
And like it was a good thing, like for the Jews.
Yes.
They were being like, I guess they were being oppressed, right? All these things. I think you can say that what the Maccabees did was okay, or like the right thing to do. I think it's possible to say that. I think it's also at the same time possible to say that the Pharisees never, while they thought that was okay, that like they still had the wrong idea from it. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's like what the rebellion and everything was justified.
Yes.
But it's, even though it's justified, if you make that the point,
the objective,
then you've missed it.
Yes, I agree. Here's a wild thought too. Okay, so, and this is just me working through this right now in my head.
Yeah. We're covering a lot of ground in this.
If as a Christian, a follower of Jesus, I understand that literally everything that is given to me, everything that I have is given to me by God. My health, my wife, future kids, a home, possessions, money. If I understand that literally everything that I have, my gifts and talents, like literally everything that I have is directly given to me from God, and I'm called to steward those things, and then you add the layer of being an American citizen on top of that, and someone comes, whether it's a government or it's an individual, and tries to take those things forcefully, right? Like take my life, take my family, take my possessions. I am going to try to stop that to the best of my ability. And if I do not succeed in staying alive, keeping my family, or keeping my possessions, as a Christian, I shouldn't be pressed. Because I understand that everything that I have is given to me, including the breath in my lungs. And if that's taken from me and I go to heaven, that I'm going to heaven. Like that I'm going to, and that the whole point of this world is for me not to be a citizen here. It's for me to be a citizen of heaven.
Yeah.
So if I have that understanding, is it going to suck? Yeah. Like, would I want to see my wife and my future children be taken away from me? Absolutely not. Right? But like objectively, that's how I would handle it. I feel like if I'm sitting in a jail cell, like wrongly accused, or I don't know, like whatever, I'm just going to be like, well, that sucks. But like, it was a fun ride, God. Like, thanks for what you gave me. Because like, that is the radical part about being a Christian. That's what's so radical about being a Christian, is that most people would be in that place and be like utterly consumed with vengeance, anger, bitterness, hate. Right? For the people that did that to them. But what is so wild about Christianity and about serving Jesus is that you could have that entire thing happen to you. You can be like the martyr that we were talking about, Perpetua.
Yeah.
You can have a baby, have your family tell you not to do this, and just to renounce your faith, and you can be at peace walking out into the Colosseum knowing that it's the last thing you'll ever see on earth. Like that is the whole, I think that like that is one of the biggest points about being a Christian
Yeah.
is that you're not really tied to this world.
Yes.
And that if I die or my family dies, it's going to freaking suck. But I know I'm going to see them again someday. Or if I lose my business, I lose my job, I lose all my money, I lose all my possessions, that's going to really suck. If America gets taken over, that's going to really suck. Like really suck. But I know that I'm not here. Like America's not my hope.
Yes.
The kingdom of God is my hope. Jesus is my hope.
100%.
I guess that's how in my mind I'm towing that line.
Yeah.
Right now. I'm going to defend my home, my family till my last bullet, my last breath. But in the end, if I don't succeed in doing that.
Yeah. So I feel like it's okay to be patriotic.
Yeah.
It's okay to have like an American flag at your door, right? Or
for sure.
Whatever. I feel like some people will get like so anti like nationalist. Yeah. That like it's like they'll get like upset.
Yeah.
If like anyone is like representing America in a way that's like supportive or whatever. It's like, dude, oh, like you're just obsessed with America, like and it's like I agree. It's like they get mad over the fact that like you support your country. And I think that's kind of the wrong idea too, because
for sure.
If I'm a citizen of a country that for the most part upholds Christian values and I'm a Christian, then like I'm gonna it would like make sense. I think it's reasonable to support that, right?
Yeah. But obviously that's a super nuanced statement, of course. Like we don't have time to talk about all the things you didn't just say right there.
Right.
Like
yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yes. But yes, at the same time, it's like it's everything you just said. Like you have to be willing to accept the things that you can't change. So yeah, like
I mean that's why I'm a big fan of the compound, dude. I'm a big fan of the homestead. I'm a big fan of the compound idea. Because it's like I'm gonna control what I can control.
Yeah.
Which is I can develop this land and I can learn how to grow food and all that stuff, right? Like that is all in my control. Like I don't control what happens at Washington. I don't control who's corrupt, who's not corrupt.
Right,
I don't control those things. And so am I going to vote? Yeah, I'm going to freaking vote. And I'm going to be a researched voter. I'm going to be an informed citizen because that I feel like is my duty as a citizen.
Yes.
Right. And then I have my duty to my family, which is protect and provide and preserve and to help them grow. And so I'm going to do all that too.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to like protect my freaking compound to the best of my ability or whatever. Protect my land because I've been given a right to have land.
Yes.
So I'm going to steward that right until it is physically taken away. Like, and I can't do anything about it. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe my opinion might completely change after I read this book. After I read this book, I might be like, yeah, screw all of that. I'm going to do whatever I can to keep America as the superpower of the world. Like, I don't know. It could totally change, and I'm open to that.
Yeah, I think that is the main thing. Like as a Christian, like the kingdom of God has to come first. It has to.
Yes.
That doesn't mean you have to completely abandon your support for your country. Like, yeah, I just think it bothers me when people are so black and white on the issue.
Me too.
So like either you're freaking all out like America, is
America's perfect.
yeah, it's savior of the world or whatever. And then the other side where America is like the worst place on earth and whatever.
Yeah,
like there's a balance, dude.
I agree.
Balance.
100%, dude.
So who you voting for, dude?
I already voted, man. It's already done. Ballot has been cast.
Just doing your civil duty, bro.
Doing my civil
That's it.
duty, man.
That's it. I feel like that pretty much sums it up, dude.
Yeah.
Could be a wild next few days.
I'm not ready, dude. I'm not ready for what's about to happen.
Maybe nothing will happen.
Something's gonna happen. I know that for sure. Something is gonna happen. I just don't know what. Either way, after election day, I'm down to go to downtown Austin.
Dude.
And see what gets drummed up down there.
Bro. Well, yeah. Last year, the last time we went, we didn't even know what was going on. Like I can't remember why we went down there, but we did. And I mean, dude, you know, South Congress Street, the road that like leads to the Capitol building.
Yeah.
That whole road was like completely backed up, dude. All the way down to, do you know where Home Slice is? The pizza place.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember where we would like park our cars at that school?
Yeah.
The car, there was like a line of traffic all the way from the Capitol building to there.
Here's the move, okay? We go park at that school and we scooter down.
That's exactly what we did.
Really?
Dude. Yes, we got
Okay.
scooters and we drove all the way down. And so, dude, it was, just picture this, dude. It was like the most wild. It felt like a movie.
Really?
Like the scene.
Yeah.
Okay, like on one side, I'm not gonna say what sides it was,
Mm-hmm.
but it was like on one side, you had all the cars like, right, and like coming towards the Capitol building
Okay.
and celebrating, right, and then like across the road in front of the Capitol building, it was like a small little rally,
Yeah.
and they're both just like shouting at each other like from across the thing, and it was just so. It felt, even though it was like divided,
Mm-hmm.
it just felt so patriotic, like on either side, because either side was, I don't know, just like
Expressing their right of
yeah.
freedom of
It was just a wild
assembly.
experience, dude.
Freedom of assembly, man. Yeah, I'm sure I probably came across to some people on this episode as like being anti-American, but I don't care. I love America, I really do, and I'm super grateful that I get to enjoy all the freedoms here. Like I've traveled out of the country, and every time I travel out of the country and I come back, I'm like, even on the cruise, when you cross American customs back into America,
Bro.
it's like, okay,
Yeah.
because you just have more freedom, and like to have an American passport is like gold. You can get so many places with that thing. It's crazy. Like the privileges that we have in America is, we truly live at one of the most insane times of freedom and freedom of information, freedom of expression that there has ever been in history. And so I'm
literally ever in history.
like
if
ever.
If you're an American citizen, you have more freedom than like 90% of the entire
history.
like human race that's ever existed. So
maybe 99.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, I can't think of another civilization.
Dude, the fact that you can go to a normal, like middle class person can go to a buffet
and eat as much
eat
food
like
as you
a
want.
king, bro.
That's a good point.
Like just that alone, it's crazy. It
is wild
when you really think about it.
You put it in perspective.
Yeah, I mean, dude, if I don't know, I hope we didn't sound too anti-American. I feel like we did pretty good.
I mean, you and I feel that way because we know each other.
Yeah.
But someone listening to us for the first time is trying to put us in a box, dude. Put me in a box, man. I don't care.
Yeah.
No, I'm super grateful. I think if you haven't read the book The Fourth Turning, you should really read that book, or at least like listen to like a summary of it on YouTube or something, because that book is so interesting from a historical perspective with historical evidence of the cycle of humanity, like an 80-year cycle. It is just
It really is, dude.
fascinating. It is fascinating to read and try to understand that, and that's really helped me understand where we are as a country right now. So next 10 years are going to be interesting.
Okay, dude. So I want to talk about this. You might have heard me talk about this, maybe. But when you were talking about Nero, okay. So I don't know if you might know this in Revelation when it says, I just think this is so interesting, dude. So in the book of Revelation, when the number of the beast is written, right? Like typically the whole mark of the beast, 666, right?
Yeah.
When that was written, right? That particular verse, I forget what the exact verse is, but when they write 666, it's written. Okay, so like New Testament was written in Greek, right?
Yeah.
That verse and the numbers that were written was written in Hebrew. Okay, so the Jews, so earlier manuscripts of that verse, they show 616 and not 666. Are you following?
Okay.
And so they found out that this number, okay, so earlier, like the Hebrew language, right? The alphabet of the Hebrew language is also. You remember I was telling you about like the Greek gematria?
Yes.
Right, and so each letter in the Hebrew language has like a numeric value, right? So the letters 666, or I'm sorry, the numbers 666 would write out the word beast. And that's how you get the number of the beast, or like the mark of the beast, right?
Okay.
So 616 would have spelled out Nero.
That's right. I remember you telling me that.
Which is just it's so interesting because, and like that was like a code that the Jews were using to refer to Nero. But it was like you could see how from the manuscripts as it went down, it was like Nero was used interchangeably for like the beast, right? And then when you talk about like end times and how Jesus was talking about like the end times are coming, right? And during that time, dude, they
probably would have felt like
they probably thought that it was a freaking end times, dude. Like
it was end times for a lot of them.
Yeah,
literally.
Yeah. Yes. So that's why John, dude, when you study John, like in his gospel, and Revelation, and the way that he writes, it's so interesting because a lot of scholars, they think that the way he wrote was in a way that he was like writing directly to people, like the Jews of his time, but then also for like, I want to say like later generations in a sense. So that's why Revelation is like, a lot of people read it as like a prophetic book, right? But the true genre would be apocalyptic. It's apocalyptic literature, right? Not necessarily prophetic, because Revelation was meant to be like an encouragement to believers. Because for all believers, like we talked about this, how every generation, right, has their crisis moment. And so for the Jews in John's time, it would have been Nero.
Wow.
Right? Like Nero was their beast. Nero was like their ultimate antagonist. Right? And so then you could say for the Jews in World War II, their beast, like their Nero, is Hitler,
Wow.
right? But like, and so Revelation is meant
Hmm.
to encourage believers like that this time, like Jesus is gonna come and like this is what our hope is all about, is that like, yes, these Neros exist, these beasts exist, but like ultimately you can trust and know, like believe that these beasts, like these antagonists, whatever, are gonna be judged, and like ultimately their reign will end, and that ultimately like and they're gonna be judged and destroyed by like God's wrath, and you're gonna be saved from that.
Wow.
Basically. So it's just really interesting, dude.
So you're saying the 616, it spelled out Nero, and you're saying that like there are actual circulations of 616 as well as circulations of 666.
Yes.
Because they were almost like interchangeable during that time because Nero was the beast.
Yeah.
But they were trying to write it for like also to be applicable for future generations.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Like when John is talking about this beast that comes, I think when, you know how it talks about the beast comes down and like in Revelation, and he has an injury of some sort, that it's sort of kind of like mimicking Jesus, where he has an injury and then he has like some kind of miraculous healing, but it's all like illusion, right? Like it's all meant to deceive the people.
Okay.
So apparently Nero like did this.
Really?
Apparently he had some, like this whole story of how he faked like an injury and had like a miraculous healing of some sort. I can't remember the whole story, but so John is like using this apocalyptic vision that was probably real, but it's also alluding to a very applicable situation that the Jews were in during that time. That's just, dude, gosh, the Bible is so like these writers, these authors were not just these casual writers, bro. Like they were
fire,
some of the best writers that ever exist.
That pin of fire just right in that heat.
It's crazy.
Well, we went about just about every direction you possibly could go.
We really could. We really did, yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in to another sporadic episode of the Second Floor Experience. And thanks for sticking with us during this time. We're just kind of in a busy time of life. We got a lot of stuff going on.
A lot.
We're going to try to get some more guests on in the near future. And appreciate you sticking with us. Thanks for listening. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Second Floor Experience. Peace.
I want to talk to you. Not now. Later. No, now.